Hello everyone, my name is Ekikere Elijah. My project is about developing land reclamation guidelines for active and abandoned aggregate pit in Saskatchewan. I work in partnership with Green Earth Environmental Solutions Incorporated in Saskatchewan, and Grant Ferguson is my advisor. The objective of the project is to provide a provincial reclamation guide for aggregate pit operators as a guide during the planning, development, operations, and closure when the extraction is done. The guideline is targeting new, existing, and abandoned pits. And the ultimate goal of reclamation is to render a land environmentally safe and beneficial for human and the ecosystem, and also make it economically feasible for future sustainable use. When we talk about reclamation, we are referring to restoring land, disturbed land to appropriate, determined, and sustainable land use. And geologically speaking, aggregate is composed of primarily sand, gravel, and any superficial rock product. In fact, anything above the bedrock is considered part of aggregate. And pit, in this context, are locations or places designated for aggregate extraction and processing. A 2017 report from the Mining Association of Canada ranked Saskatchewan as the number 6 in the country on aggregate production. In fact, Saskatchewan brought in about $100 million in revenue from aggregate production in 2017. So this indicates a lot of activities in terms of aggregate extraction and pit operation. In the province, the Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities, that is SARM, has oversight on aggregate resources management and extractions, and have published a manual of best management practices for aggregate development or operations. In that manual, they recommend pit reclamation, but without specific guidelines for its practice. So my approach to developing the guideline involved meetings with the partner organization, my advisor, and peers. It was to include site visit, but that was not possible due to COVID-19 pandemic. So I took on literature review, which was mainly online sources, government publications, and reports, including reclamation guidelines from Alberta, British Columbia, and Ontario. These provinces produce more aggregate and have long-standing successes in pit reclamation over the years. So through the review, I noticed some gaps in the guide for aggregate pit operation in Saskatchewan. I noticed that there is no specific provincial-wide reclamation guidelines. I also observed that the fee schedule for operators is insufficient, inconsistent, and not persuasive. That is reclamation-wise, and also depending on the type of land you are operating on. I also noticed that reclamation enforcement was lacking, be it through something like revoking or suspension of license and including fines. So the next thing I did in my approach was to look at the Land Use Act and regulations at federal and provincial levels to serve as a guide for the reclamation guideline development. An effective reclamation process covers the planning and development phase of the aggregate extraction, which includes phase 1 and phase 2 pre-site assessment. Therefore, the guideline covered the planning, development, and operational phase of a pit. Most importantly, the guideline addressed the post-mining reclamation land end use, which are generally 6 types, as you can see there. And this table summarizes the type of land end use that is compatible with pre-mining land use. So all this information help in choosing a reclamation strategy or method, and the guideline has addressed all of this. So whether you want to initiate reclamation after all extraction is done, or use the progressive continuous method, the guideline covers it all. So this guideline basically shapes the procedural path that leads to any determined type of land end use. In conclusion and recommendation, I put it that the province should adopt a guideline that's provincial-wide for pit reclamation for all operators for consistency. In addition, the fees and reclamation security funds need a review for consistency to make it persuasive or encouraging for an operator to perform mining reclamation. Also, effort should be put into monitoring and reclamation enforcement. And lastly, there should be penalties for offenders and defaulters of reclamation practices. So that's what my project was all about. I appreciate everybody's contribution to make this project a success. Thank you.